G'day everybody. This is without a doubt the most ambitious automotive project I've ever been involved in my life. Now, it's been a background project in the shed for a long time, so we haven't been hammering it, we haven't been working on it full time, but it's just one of those things that when I get a chance and the motivation is there, we do a fair bit of Boss Goss. Now, Boss Goss, it's got a 290 Boss motor in it, so hence the name Boss there. Goss, it's a surviving John Goss special from 1975. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with John Goss, he was a privateer race driver who won at Bathurst, Australia's most prestigious race. As a tribute to John, Ford Australia made some special cars, and this is one of those. Now, when I first was contacted about this car, a good friend of mine, Phil, had it for some time, and he had it home in his shed, and he begged me to come and have a look at it, so I did. I walked around the car, and my honest comment straight off that came out without even thinking about it was, mate, just do the world a favour and take it to the tip, because it really wasn't worth spending money on. So Phil was a bit shocked and set back from my comments, but he got over it and he bounced back and he said, can you fix it? And I said, well, I can fix it. And he said, good, we'll fix it. So in years to come, Phil's walked around this car and he reminds me of this and he says, we saved it. So yes, we saved it. But for the things we've done to this car, in a way, it's been really good because we didn't start with a pristine example. We started with a car that really wasn't worth restoring, and it's allowed us to sort of put the time and effort into building a custom and unique car, and we haven't destroyed an original example. The original idea was to start by doing a muscled up resto. So Phil originally wanted to put a 351, a top loader 4-speed and the 9-inch diff in it, disc brakes all the way around, and just build a nice cruising car. And that had made a nice car. And then I looked at the top loader 4-speed and I said, mate, why don't you just put a 5-speed in it? Make it more of a cruiser, nicer to drive, better on fuel. So next minute we've got a brand new TKO 500 sitting there and a bell housing for the Cleveland. So that's good. And then the evolution started setting in. I got a phone call one day and Phil said, mate, what do you reckon about putting independent rear suspension in it? And I thought, oh, yeah. So an XR8 rear end landed in my shed and we sort of sat it around underneath the Goss. And it all measured up quite nice. The only drama is it was 2 5/8 of an inch wider across the axle flanges than what the XB axle was. And one of the requirements was the 15 by 10 inch Simmons wheels Phil wanted to retain on the car at the time. And the reality is these Ford coupes, they're so big in the back that unless you've got 10 inch rims on the back, they do look like they're running around on razor blades. So I agreed with that. But 2 5/8 of an inch, it pushes the wheels out 1.25 inches aside, and they were under the sheet metal. So the solution in the end was to push the side of the car out. So we have flared the side of the car all the way through, and it's now 1.5 inches wider than what it was when the car was new. So that was the first little evolution, and that all fits in there and works quite nicely. If you're going to run a more modern high-tech rear suspension in your car, you might as well go with something a bit more interesting than 351 Cleveland. So a Boss motor turned up. Now the motor we've got sitting in the car is a 260 kilowatt motor out of an XR8. Now this is our mock-up motor. It's only done 30,000 kilometres, so it is run in, and we'll get the car going with this engine in it, and we can do all the test driving. We can get the car completely engineered and all the approvals done so we can have rego. And yes, the Whipple supercharger has sort of snuck into the equation as well. So the Boss motor, the 5-speed gearbox, and the late model independent rear suspension. So that sort of made our muscle part of the project come along. But then we started looking at front suspension, and we started out with a strut conversion from a company called RRS. Now the RRS kit, although very good in what it is, wasn't what we were looking for. We've got front suspension cross members and steering rack from a later model Falcon. So the ones that we used in the AUs, the BAs and the BFs. We've narrowed it 50 millimetres to suit the track of the XB, but we've retained the strut package. So the RRS system basically uses a Commodore strut. So we've done the same thing. So when you're building a custom front suspension package, the big killer is the toe in and out run out across the suspension range. Now if you measure the gap between the front wheels at the front, that's your toe. If you measure it at ride height and then measure it with the suspension fully compressed and the suspension fully lowered, you will have a difference, and that's the toe in and out run out. Now Falcons have a lot. It's a really big discrepancy. We've improved ours and we've played around with angles of arms, we've shifted the steering rack in location to the cross member, and we've got it close. We've got it down to about 80 thousandths of an inch across the entire suspension range. So the reality is we have nothing. So this is going to make a really good driving package, and I'm looking forward to getting it on the road and trying it out. Now there's a lot of body modifications on this car, so I might as well start at the front and work my way through to the back. Now we liked the idea of bulging the bonnet, and mainly it was to tie into the fact that we've got the late model Falcon motor, and the XR8s and the GTs and the other special cars actually had the bonnet bulged. So we liked that, so we incorporated that aspect of it in the back. Now the big thing that we're trying to achieve with this car is building a retro XB from the point of view of what would the Ford Motor Company do if they were building a new one today. So we look at the design of new cars and how smooth they are, and we've taken the die-cast inserts out of the vents in the bonnet, and I've made sheet metal to exactly duplicate the shape of those. And so we have a completely smooth bonnet there. In actual fact, most of this panel is a new skin. There's a few elements of the original left in it, but not many. So another feature I've added is the recess in the front of it to put the modern Ford badge in there. And that just ties into the look of making it a new car rather than an old car. We've retained the bonnet lock pins of the XB because that's a bit of a feature of these cars, so we wanted to keep that alive. The same thing to smooth the car, I've taken the eyebrows off the front of it. This model has a die-cast extension that bolts to the front of the fender, and there's a line that runs around here. And on the Goss cars, they actually are two-tone. It's dark green on top and white on the sides, and the eyebrow was painted white along with the strip across the front of the bonnet. So I've smoothed this, and we'll run our two-tone right to the front edge and just have white on the front face across the bottom there. So this is a sheet metal extension. It's all welded to the fender and made the fender a little bit, well, it's no different in proportion to what it was, but we've made the fender longer and taken the eyebrow away. All the engine bay sheet metal is completely unique. It's been handmade. Because we've gone to struts rather than the original spring and wishbone arrangement, I've made smaller towers, and that gave us enough room for this engine to fit through with no clearance issues. The other thing I wanted to incorporate was the fact that it's a two-tone car on the outside, so I wanted to bring the two-tone into the engine bay. So I've added a false line around the car. So there's actually an overlapping panel that we'll paint dark green on the top, white on the bottom with the orange pinstripe from the Goss colours, and that line's going to follow all the way around the engine bay. So it'll wrap around the tower, and then it's going to run across the plenum at the back. And I've also taken the wiper motor, which normally sits in the engine bay back here, and put it inside the plenum. We've got the master cylinders and brake booster from the late model Falcon that the motor belongs to, and we've got all the pedal box that belongs to that underneath the car. Now our main focus on this car, once again, build a retro car that Ford Australia could have built. So we're not going to have any polished billet or anything in the engine bay. We're going to have painted surfaces, we're going to have plastic parts and make it look like a factory engine bay. We're going to have wiring that is going to be taped and just fitted around the engine bay. There's going to be air conditioning pipes, power steering pipes, you'll be able to see all that. But that's what we're trying to build. We're trying to build something that the factory could have made. On the front of the engine compartment, we've got a new radiator support panel. Now this will bolt in and out of the car. It makes changing the engine very easily, and it's stronger than the original. I've made it out of doubled up 2mm places across here. It's a good solid thing, and I've added this front ledge onto it basically. It carries the grille. On XBs, the grille is supported by a couple of strips in the top, and every time you see a picture of a killer looking XB, if you sight across the grille, it'll always be sagged between these brackets. So what I've done is I've made this piece in here. The grille clips onto the front of it. It'll hold it in perfect alignment with the bonnet the whole time. but it also ensures that the air is going to go through the radiator, and the air coming through the grille can't go up and over the radiator support panel and pack the engine bay up with air and stop the airflow through the radiator. Yeah. We've got the power steering cooler from the late model Falcon as well. That's been modified and mounted in the front here. The air conditioner condenser and the radiator are from the same vehicle. Later on we'll be fitting an intercooler between the air conditioner condenser and the radiator. So there's a little bit of modification work left to be done here, and I have allowed room in the car for that to happen. Where the driving lights would normally be fitted on these XBs, they're just a spotlight that hang on a mount upside down in there. And quite often you would see a nice looking XB and the spotlight's off on an angle or something like that. So we've done away with that and we've put centre headlights in there. So these are on proper headlight mounts with adjusting screws, and once they're set they'll just be like it forever. They'll shine straight down the road. So that'll tidy that up a little bit. And the other thing that also does is it ensures that the light is actually centred in the grille. And it was a big problem on this car to actually get all 4 headlights so that they were exactly in the middle of the headlight openings. But we've got there, it's all good, we're all happy with that. You can't see it at the moment because the front bumper is off the car, but the bumper has been smoothed, it fits onto the car and it lines up exactly with the corners of the fenders, and we've actually tightened up the gaps around the fender openings, and that fits in there very nicely. Now, keeping the modern theme in place, we've flush fitted the glass. So what that actually means is we've done away with the windscreen mouldings and we've lifted this ledge up for the glass to go on and brought these edges in. So we've actually got the glass fits in there with a little bit of a gap all the way around it, but we will actually fit a little rubber moulding over the edge, which was common sort of in the late 90s and the early 2000s on cars. The newer cars, again, they've just gone to having a gap around the edge, but we've decided our styling has the little rubber moulding on it, so that's what we're going to use. Now, this was originally a sunroof car, and the original sunroof panel was fine, but the roof around it was quite rusty. The drip tray that fits inside the car was very rusty, and the roof was badly damaged from some previous rust repair work that had been done on it. So I wound up actually cutting a lot of the roof skin out and making a new one and correcting the opening. But what we've also done is taken a modern electric sunroof, taken the glass panel off it, and we've stretched the drip tray out a bit to suit the dimensions of the XB, and we've fitted the original steel roof panel to the tracks and runners that make the modern sunroof works. So now we've got a sunroof that not only opens up at the back, but it runs into the roof. It's got its own little microprocessor which can be programmed. We can have it open to whatever depth we want each time, and that's just kind of cool. It sort of hit the button now and it just slides back into the roof. It's nice and quiet. A little wind deflector pops up when you open it. So I like that. That's just sort of makes it a whole lot nicer than what the original setup was. Neither of us really liked the XB door handles, and Phil was all in favour of just smoothing them over and have a remote control to open the doors. And I'm not big on this idea. Like, it looks nice, smooth finished cars, no handles to interrupt the view of them and things like this, but this is a road car. This is a car that's high powered, high speed road car that we actually want to drive. And I said to him, Phil, just imagine if you've run off the road in this car and there's you and your wife trapped inside and rescuers come running up and go to rip you out of your car and there's no door handle. And he says, oh yeah, okay. So between us we threw several ideas around and we came up with an idea of putting the door handle into here. Now, we've got a prototype door handle we've made that actually works the mechanism. It opens and closes the door, and so we've cut the recess in the door here. We've got a handle that'll fit nicely into that, and then we've put a finger opening in the body behind the door, this little scallop in here. And so when the door's closed, it'll have the little scallop open behind it, and it just flushes the car off and makes it smooth. And while we're still on the doors, we're going to use the original XB Falcon mirrors, little moulded bullet-shaped mirrors, but we're going to put electric mechanisms inside them, and we'll have electrically operated mirrors with a button on the driver's side door. So great safety feature, and the fact that you can just control them whenever you're driving the car and things like that. And when your wife gets into it and changes it, you can just change it back. We're going to keep the interior of the car along the XB theme. We're going to keep the XB dash, but modernise the instruments. And no, we're not going to put a big aluminium panel across and have a heap of autometer gauges. We're going to have modern style gauges in an XB theme. But so when you turn the key on, the needles are going to light up and things like that. We're putting all modern electrics in it. Because of the engine, we decided we might as well have all the toys that would come in a later model Falcon. So we're going to have traction control, we're going to have front and rear air conditioning, we're going to have electric windows, it'll have a body control module, so when you shut the doors the interior lights will fade out. We'll have dusk sensing headlights, things like that. We'll have all these toys. It'll be a nice car. Another cool little thing we've done to it is we've done away with the die-cast ornament side scoop, which Ford Australia gave us, and that has this little insert that fits in behind it. And I've made the outer pieces out of sheet metal and made them part of the quarter panel. Now this area in here was a panel I made anyway, so I figured when I started doing that, if it didn't work out, I'd just make another piece and weld back in the car. But it worked fine, and then a lot of people looked at it and said, well, you've done a good job of that side, but how are you going to get the other side the same? Well, I just made it the same way and it turned out the same on the other side. So what we're going to do is take this insert and mill the back of it out, and we're going to put a pipe on there, and we'll just put one of those flexible aluminium sort of pipes through the quarter panel, and we'll feed air into the brakes and actually do what Ford pretended the side scoop was going to do in the first place. So that'll work really nice. When the stereo system was selected for this car, we looked at the parcel shelf in here, and a lot of it was rusty. So we've made our own replacement one, but we've made the pressings in the parcel shelf to suit the speakers we're going to use. We've also got flush mounted seat belts for the back seat passengers, and we'll build a new panel that fits over the top and smooths everything out. And we're also going to run the eye level stoplight in it, which ties into the modern features that we've fitted to the rest of the car. Now, as well as the smoothing out and the modernising of the car, we've fitted a fuel door which is operated by the solenoid. And I do have to say this, the fuel door did come from a Holden Commodore, but we'll forgive it for that and we'll paint it to match the Ford and it'll be okay. Just don't tell anyone, okay? The boot lid was very rusty, and it had a previous wing type spoiler on it, and then it had the XC type fiberglass spoiler on top of it, and there was rust holes in it that you could nearly put your hands through. So we decided we'd build a new boot lid skin for it, but we'd incorporate a spoiler into the back of it as well. So we made a lot of cardboard templates and stuck them on with masking tapes, and we walked around the car until we had a design that we were happy with. So this is what we made. There is one weld in the boot lid skin, and it runs just across under this edge all the way across here. And apart from that, just the two pieces of steel, butt welded all the way across, and the same as the bonnet, I've put a recess in there for the Ford oval to go in the back of it. The decision was made early on to take the gutters off the car. Now straight up, I'm not a big fan of gutterless cars. I think they look smooth and boring. So we talked about this a lot before we got the grinder out and actually took them off. And we threw a lot of ideas around, and between us we came up with an idea that everybody liked. And what we did was kept the little step in the roof through here that is factory Ford, and the gutter line comes out about through there originally. And then we've added a piece on the bottom and made a little divot on the bottom of it, and the piece on the bottom hides the stainless steel moulding that the rubber seal fits into. And that makes the car roof a little bit longer, but it actually just tidies everything up and makes it look nice. So here's the profile that we used. So this piece has got a little divot on the bottom to make it look like a factory gutter line. It's got a step in it where it comes up, and the chrome moulding fits into this recess, and then the rubber seal goes in here for the glass to go into. And then this edge here joins onto the bottom of the original roof line and makes this little raised up section a little bit deeper on the car, but it also gives it that factory look to it. It doesn't look like someone's just come along there and ground the gutters off and made the car smooth on the side. So that finishes off. We've also had to make the pillar a little bit wider, because the same thing is, the same profile runs down this edge here to hide the chrome moulding as well. This all ties into the theme of the car. So from the beginning, we've come up with an idea that we wanted to modernise an XB hardtop. So we've looked at modern cars and looked at the way they've done the car and built the car. They've made the car smoother and more flowing on the lines, and we've duplicated that in an old car. And it's very important, if you're starting to build a project, that you actually have a plan in mind, that you have a theme for the car. And what I'm saying, if you're going to, say, restore a 1920s car, and you're going to leave the original engine and driveline in it, the original style trim, original colour scheme, you're not going to put a set of 20-inch mag wheels on it, because they just don't fit the car. They don't look right for the era. They don't bolt on there and things like that. So if you are planning a build, have a vision in your mind of where you want to go with it and tie it all to a theme. So we've done the same with this car. We've modernised the engine bay, we've modernised the suspension. We're going to modernise the interior, but we're going to keep the theme of the XB alive. We've modernised the shape of the car, but once again, it is still the iconic XB shape. So everything we've done to this car fits that theme. You see where I'm going? Hope you do. I'm Rob Teal. Thank you very much for watching. And if you're going to run a... Hi everybody, I thought today I'd talk about the John Goss, and Deb doesn't like the way I'm standing, so I thought I'd just dance the whole episode today. Yes, let's get down to the serious stuff now. None of this mucking around. Back the way I was? Like that? Now I got the giggles. Oh, giggle, 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 giggle. I don't know how you end it from where I'm saying it's amen.